Welcome to the Scott Townsend Show, brought to you by Dietzo Man Productions.
All right, so hey, this is Scott Townsend. Thanks for watching and listening to the Scott Townsend Show. Today I have back with me the first guest I've had to return. The last video, actually, honestly, when we did that last video, I thought it was okay, but it turned out to be the most popular video that we've done on the Scott Townsend Show so far. So thought I'd have Keith Clark, aka Beef, back on the show. Welcome, Beef. How's it going?
Hey, it's doing great. How you doing, Scott?
Great. Keith was talking last time about Ragbri in Iowa, riding across Iowa on his own. And so he did that, had some interesting stories to tell. So he went, now he went down to Houston. I won't give it all away, but I thought I'd have him back and tell his stories about coming back from Houston and what he did. So you went to Houston, Beef. What happened? What'd you do? Why'd you go to Houston?
Well, it started about 2 weeks before, and I was up in Kansas going to a family reunion on my motorcycle, and I decided to ride my motorcycle up there. And I said, "Hey," my brother sends me an email. Says, "Hey, look at this email." I said, "No, I know what the email is." He goes, "I want you to look at this motorcycle," and it's a BMW 1200 GS. And I've got a 700 GS. And I said, "No, I don't want to buy a motorcycle." He said, "Just look at the pictures." So finally, Saturday night, I broke down and looked at the pictures. And when I opened up the first picture, it was exactly the color I would have ordered if I ordered this motorcycle. It was used. So one thing led to the next. And pretty soon I was buying a motorcycle in Houston. So that's why I went to Houston.
So it's shaft driven?
Yeah, it's 1200 GS. It's got a bigger engine. It's shaft drive. My 700 is chain driven. So
tell me the story about, I happen to know the story about the chain. I think this is the real reason why you went from chain to shaft. What happened with your chain?
So 5-6 years ago, let's back up a little bit before. So I had some heart issues. I had to have a couple stents put in. I was an avid bicycle rider, and I said, "Hey, you know, my heart doctor was saying, 'Hey, you got to stop riding your bicycle so much.'" And then he said, I wouldn't listen to him. I was in a meeting with him, actually. At doctor's
You
office.
wouldn't listen to him?
Yeah. He goes, "You won't listen." And I said, "No, I got a plan B, doc." And he was walking out the door when I said my plan B. And he said, "What's your plan B?" And I said, "I'm going to buy a motorcycle." And the heart doctor looked at me and goes, "Great. I'll be treating you for a head injury." I said, "Hey, doc, you're my heart doctor. Let the trauma guys do the head. You just stick with my heart." So that's how the motorcycle thing, he was telling me I had to stop riding my bicycle so much. I mean, he said I could ride like 15 miles. And I said, "That's nothing." So I decided to buy a motorcycle. So started out looking at a used motorcycle back in 2015. And pretty soon I was at the BMW shop in Arkansas buying a end of the year clearance 700 GS that had a chain drive. So, but back to the story on the chain drive.
Right.
So I rode my 700 all over the place and loved it, and maintained it. Everything was good. Got up to about 14,000 miles, and I said, "Hey, I'm going to buy a new chain for this thing and get it put on, new sprockets." Well, my buddy that was going to put it on couldn't do it. That's a whole nother story. But I had this trip planned to go to Minnesota to see a concert. And dang it, I forgot the guy's name. Old country singer that smoked dope.
Willie Nelson.
Willie Nelson, that's the guy. So, this is my wife.
The
sometimes
mine's
you
the
ask
first
me,
thing to go.
Yeah, I wasn't smoking no dope. But my wife was a big Willie Nelson fan, so I bought tickets, and her and I were going to go up there. And about a month before the concert, she backed out on me. She said, "Man, that's like 7-8 hours drive up there." I said, "But we're going to go see Willie Nelson." And Charlie Daniels was there too. And but she backed out. And but my nephew lived up in Rochester, Minnesota area, Stewartville. And I called him up. He had a motorcycle. And I said, I was talking to my brother actually, and I said, "Hey, does Aaron like Willie Nelson?" And he's like, Yeah, I think so. So I said, see if he wants to go to the concert. I got 2 tickets. So I got Aaron on the phone. He was 22 probably at the time. And I said, hey, you want to go see Willie Nelson? He goes, yeah. Charlie Daniels. Yeah. So I rode up to Rochester on my motorcycle. Remember, it had 14,000 miles and I was going to change out my chain, but couldn't get it done. So I just said, I'll adjust it. Everything will be good. I'll make it. So I went up to the concert. It was great. And on the way back, I realized my chain.
You rode your motorcycle all the way to Minnesota?
Yeah.
To see a concert?
Here's some more story to that. Most people would look at a map.
Yeah.
But I don't like maps. And I had 2 days to get there. So I said, I got to go north. And I got to go a little bit to the east from Bartlesville. So I'm just heading north. And every time I get to a dead end, heading north, I'll turn east and go down to the next road. And then I'll head north again. No map, no nothing. Just, I'll get there eventually.
So you were on the highways or you weren't on the highways?
I was on the back roads of America and dirt roads, whatever road was in front of me. I started out on Highway 75.
Yeah.
I got up to Caney and then I just kept going north because 75 kind of angled over to Independence. So I went up to Havana and some other places, came up. Eventually I had to turn and head east again, and then I headed north. So
was this a one-day trip or a couple of days or what?
Well, it should have been a one-day trip, but when you just head north and hitting dead ends, sometimes it takes longer. So my plan was to get through Kansas, and get through Iowa or Nebraska actually, and then kind of head over. But after I didn't make it past Kansas, I was still in Kansas after the first day. I was like, oops, but I had a good time. Taking back roads, dirt roads and all that, I was only going 25 miles an hour sometimes, 20. So I finally ended up staying in, I think, Abilene, Kansas. Not Abilene. I stayed up north there, somewhere where the train came through. I forgot the name of the town. But
the mine's the first thing to go. Remember that.
I know. That sucks. I need a freaking map. So Atchison, it came back. Atchison, Kansas. If you ever get to Atchison, Kansas, when you come in from the south, there's a really cool cemetery with a bunch of big tombstones because it was a railroad town. But I ended up staying there. And what was interesting about Atchison, I didn't know where to stay because I didn't plan on staying there that night. So I went to a hotel, just riding around town thinking, I'll find a hotel. I found this old, cheaper hotel, kind of like the old 1950s. And I was thinking, $49? What a deal. So I went in, I rode in on my motorcycle. I saw the guy sitting in there. And he...
Bates Motel.
Yeah, he kind of looked like Bates Motel. Yeah. So I walked in and he starts talking about my motorcycle. And he starts telling me about his motorcycle. I saw his motorcycle when I pulled up and I parked beside it. I didn't know it was his. I thought it was somebody staying there. And he's like, hey, you need a place to stay? I said, well, I'm just kind of seeing, what you have. And, I usually stay at Holiday Inns and Hamptons and, nicer hotels on business trips. And this was not, it was a nice hotel, but it was nothing like that.
Right.
He goes, hey, dude, I'll make you a good deal. I think it was $49. I said, okay. He goes, I even got a motorcycle cover to put over on your motorcycle. And I said, really? He goes, yeah. He said, we're in a good neighborhood, but he said, we'll just cover it up so it doesn't get wet. So this guy, super nice guy, forgot where he was from, but he was, from overseas somewhere running this hotel. We get to talking about my motorcycle and my adventure up. And he looked at me and goes, you didn't get very far today. I said, no, I got to get more serious tomorrow. And I actually had like 2.5 days, but I'd planned on getting there like the day before to see my brother a little bit before we took off. But we ended up, he goes into his little shop, comes back with this nice motorcycle cover, covers up my motorcycle. I go up to my hotel room. It's a nice little hotel room. And I stayed there that night.
Hotel or motel?
Motel.
Motel.
Yeah. Yeah. You walk in, you got a door from the outside.
Right.
Yeah. No Holiday Inn for sure.
Right.
But, so I stayed there that night. The next day, I took off that morning. The next morning, I said, I got to get serious. I got to get to Minnesota. You know. So now I'm going up through Nebraska and up to Iowa on the western side of Iowa. Goofing off again, heading north, turning right, heading north. And a couple dead ends. I ended up going down a dirt road by a river. It was really cool. And all of a sudden the road started falling apart, and I said, this ain't looking good. And then it kind of went downhill, and I thought, I better stop here. So I took my helmet off, and I could hear water rushing. And I was thinking, I'm going to park my bike. So I parked it on the dirt road. Didn't have to worry about anybody else coming down this dirt road because it looked like nobody had been down it for years. I started walking down the hill, and when I got to the bottom, the river was going across the road. There was no bridge. It was gone, and it was probably 10 feet deep of water, and it was moving pretty fast. I said, thank goodness I didn't go down that hill. I'd had a heck of a time turning around. So U-turned it, went back to the highway, started going back down, found me a new road to go. But long story short, I did not make it to Minnesota that night. So now I'm in the northern part of Iowa, and it's dark, and I don't like to ride my motorcycle in the dark. And I end up seeing these bright lights. And I was like, hey, I'm coming to a town. And it looked like, you know, and it looked like the Field of Dreams, kind of, because it was, I could tell it was stadium lights. So, you know, my brother had called me and said, where are you? And I said, well, I'm not making it to Minnesota tonight. I'm somewhere in northern Iowa. So I come up into this town, and just on the east side of the road, those bright lights, it was a baseball game. And, you know, it was like 9 o'clock at night, and I'm thinking, I'm going to the game. And it was probably 13, 14-year-olds playing baseball. So went up there, parked my motorcycle, went up there and watched the last half of that baseball game.
Who won?
One of the teams.
Huh?
One of the teams. It wasn't the team I was cheering for. I was the other team now. I don't remember. But it was a good game. They had a concession stand, got me some popcorn and hot dogs, and that's where I had lunch or dinner that night. Cool.
Sounds like a good dinner. That's
Yeah, I talked to a few people. They asked me where I was headed. I told them Minnesota. They said tonight, and I said no. But I did find a hotel. It was a little bit nicer hotel there, but the guy wasn't near as nice. He didn't have a motorcycle cover for my bike.
Yeah.
So, but I parked it underneath the covered parking deal right outside the front door. That's the nice thing about motorcycles. You can just park right underneath the hangar, you know, the covered parking right there by the front door. So called my brother about 10:30, 11, said, I'm not going to make it. I'm in this little town in Iowa. Can't remember the town. Memory goes, remember. But I was only like an hour and a half away, and he's like, you got to get here tomorrow, because we had to get to the concert, which was like 2 hours north of Rochester. So got up the next morning and cruised on into Stewartville, Minnesota, which is just outside of Rochester, Minnesota. Can we go on?
Well, what about your chain?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
We haven't got to the chain.
We haven't got to the concert yet.
Oh.
So I pick up my, you know, I'm on a BMW 700 GS chain drive. My nephew, he's like 22 years old. He has a Harley Davidson with like a super loud exhaust pipe.
Is he Kevin's son?
Yeah,
Okay.
Kevin's son. Yeah. So I talked to my brother.
Kevin's your brother. Okay.
Kevin's my brother. One of my brothers. I got a couple extra ones. That'll be another story. But so we pack up and we're going to camp out when we get to this thing, because the concert was at the casino kind of straight east of Minneapolis, St. Paul area. So they had a campground. I think that's one reason my wife probably didn't want to go to the concert.
Yeah.
She's like,
Smart
camp
woman.
out? Yeah. She goes, there's a hotel there. And I said, it's expensive, man. Let's just camp out. That'll be more fun. But so we get the tents and, we take off, and head toward up north again. But now we're more serious. We got to get there. And plus, Harley Davidson can't ride on dirt roads. So
Yeah.
I'm following Aaron on his Harley Davidson. It is so noisy behind a damn Harley. I couldn't hear myself inside my helmet. And I'm thinking,
How come you can't ride a Harley down a dirt road?
because they'd get them dirty and then they'd have to go home and clean them all up and shine them. I mean, it's like, have you ever seen a Harley Davidson? They're always shined up and pretty.
Yeah.
Aaron looked at my bike and goes, do you ever wash this thing? And I said, when it rains, but I don't wash it. It's going to be on a dirt road the next day. So, but we go to the concert. Charlie Daniels comes out and plays. And then Willie Nelson comes out. Great concert. Fantastic concert. And we have a great time. Get up the next morning. We end up cruising back to Rochester. And no chain problem yet. Everything looked good. But
Was Kevin on a motorcycle too?
nah, he stayed home. We didn't take him. He's no fun. This was Uncle Keith and my nephew.
Okay.
So we went, got back to his house, and I ended up taking off that afternoon because I figured since it took me like 2.5 days to get to Minnesota, it might take me 2.5 days to get back home. So I end up
With no map, probably.
with what?
No map, probably.
No map. Yeah. You don't need a map. I know I need to head south, and now I need to head west. I know where
There you go.
Minnesota and Bartlesville are. So I take off, and I'm riding along, and this is when I first noticed I had a chain problem. And I was like, I need to tighten up my chain. But I forgot to bring my 24 millimeter wrench that I used to.
How could you tell your chain needed maintenance?
Because I looked at it. I bought some oil to spray on it.
What did you see?
It was loose. It was sloppy.
You mean it was kind of
it was
sagging?
Sagging.
Okay.
It was sagging down. So we end up looking at the chain, but I don't have a 24 millimeter. But I thought, it's not that bad. I'll make it. So I end up riding that day, and I stayed at a hotel again. And the next day I got up and I'm riding through Iowa. And now my chain started doing some weird stuff. Every time I shifted between first gear and second gear and third, actually just between first, second, and third, it had a little popping noise. I was like, that's not good. So I looked at my chain again and I thought, man, I don't know what's going on. But the good news, when I got up to fourth, fifth, and sixth, it didn't make that popping noise anymore.
Oh, yeah.
So that made me feel a little bit better. Now I'm going 60, 70 with no popping noise.
Just keep going 60 and 70 and you'll be all right.
So I come through Iowa, and I'm somewhere west and south of Des Moines. By the way, Des Moines is the capital of Iowa.
Okay. There
Just
you
so
go.
we have that clear. There was some controversy last time, but
Last time, right.
I know what the capital is. And St. Paul is the capital of Minneapolis. Okay, got that? Okay.
St. Paul, Minnesota,
St. Paul, Minnesota.
not Minneapolis.
Oh, yeah. St.
Yeah.
Paul beside Minneapolis.
Yeah.
Yeah. St. Paul, Minnesota. Got it right. So now I'm in a little town because I don't ride main highways. I ride back roads. And it's probably 6 or 7. And I'm probably
In the evening?
in the evening.
Mhm.
I haven't got that far. Rode all day, but I've had a good time. So I get there and I stop at a gas station to get fuel, and a couple motorcycles pull in. And they asked me where I was going. I got bags and everything on my motorcycle. So, told them I was headed back to Oklahoma. I'd been up to Minnesota to see the Willie Nelson concert. And I said, he goes, which way are you heading? I said, I'm going straight south down this highway. And he said, stay on this highway. And then tomorrow, when you head toward Kansas City, he said, open your eyes because you're going to see the Hot Rod Power Tour. And I said, the Hot Rod Power Tour, what are you talking about? He goes, just stay on this road you're on and then take this other road into Kansas City. So I keep riding, and I come up to this hotel I was going to stay at. It's getting dark now. I don't like to ride in the dark. Get to this hotel in the middle of nowhere, thinking I could get a room. I walk in there, and she's sold out. I said, sold out? She said, yep. So then I called another hotel 10 miles down the highway, 12 miles, and they had vacancy, one room. So I said, well, I'm headed that way. So, but now it's dark. It's like 9 o'clock at night, 9:30. And I said, you know, but I'd put on some fancy new headlights by Clearwater Lights in California. Really, really expensive. I can't tell you how much. My wife would kill me. But they're safety, so I'll tell you. They're like, no, I'm not going to tell you. Not worth it. So, but I have these really nice driving lights. They have a dimmer switch that I can turn from like 30% all the way up to 100%. And whenever I turn on the high beams, it kicks them onto high beam. So with my headlights and my fancy driving lights, I could see. And this is really the first time I'd ever driven at night this late in a place I didn't know with these fancy lights. And I was like, wow, these things are good. I mean, I saw a frog jumping across the road in front of me. And then I saw a little squirrel, you know, and this was way out in front of me. You know, I could see him. I was like, wow, impressive.
Blue sky, clouds.
Yeah, it was dark, but it looked like daylight to me.
Yeah.
I was cruising down the highway. When vehicles meet me and I got them on high beam, they're
Oh,
like,
man.
they don't
They're
like
pissed.
me, but they're pissed. But I dim them down and they're still pissed because they're still pretty bright.
Yeah.
But so I get to this new hotel. And when I get to this hotel, I notice there's like 3 or 4 old classic hot rods from the 60s. You know, some cool old Chevelles, and I think there was a Mustang and some other, but there was like 3 or 4. And I'm thinking, I kind of remember the guy at the gas station talking about the Hot Rod Power Tour, but I'd kind of said, I have no idea what he's talking about. I remember the Hot Rod magazine when I was a kid, but I don't have any idea what this guy's talking about. But I see these 3 or 4 old cool cars when I pull in. So, you know, I parked my motorcycle up right in front of the hotel again, went inside, checked in, went to bed because it's like 11 o'clock at night. Got up the next morning, take off at, you know, I've already wasted a day and a half, and now it's serious. It's Sunday. I got to be at work on Monday. I got to get back to Oklahoma. So I go out there, and these guys are talking by their cars. And I'm thinking, what are these hot rods doing out here in the middle of nowhere?
What town was this again?
I don't know. Somewhere north and east of
That's all
Kansas
right.
City. That's
Don't
all
hurt
I know.
yourself.
Yeah. You know, I've been riding motorcycles. So I take off that morning. I didn't go talk to him for some reason. I actually did talk to him a little bit. And they said something about the Hot Rod Tour. And I'm thinking, I don't know what this is. Like the Cannonball Run or something, but I had no clue. I didn't Google it. So I'm cruising down the road, and all of a sudden, I figured it out. The Hot Rod Power Tour is a moving car show.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. It's 7 days, 7 cities, and they have car shows every afternoon, but every morning they drive to the next destination. It's like a moving bicycle ride, a moving Ragbri. And I'm thinking, but the way I figured it out was I'm on the highway. I'm headed south. These guys are headed north toward Iowa, and they're coming at me. Hot rod after hot rod. So for 3 hours, I watched cars come at me. I'm driving like 20 miles an hour on Highway 55 because I'm like, here's a Corvette, here's a Camaro, here's a Mustang, here's an old Chevy van, pickup trucks, you name it. They're cruising the hot rods down the highway. I pulled over in a couple towns and watched them go by, and when they come through the small towns, they're spinning their wheels and acting like a bunch of teenage kids. And they're all, you know, anywhere from I guess there's some teenagers there, but most of them are 50, 60, 70-year-old guys and gals. So it is just amazing. So I see this all the way till I get to Kansas City. So I had a moving car show for 3.5 hours. It was fantastic. So I kind of forgot about my chain problem because I really never shifted between first and second. I was just cruising about 20 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And pulling over, and then, I was too focused on seeing all the hot rods and taking pictures of the cars, so I kept pulling over. So I get to Kansas City, and now it's about 2 or 3 in the afternoon. And I still got 3 or 4 hours to get home. My chain's popping again. Now I'm paying attention. I look at my chain when I got fuel in Kansas City, and I'm thinking, this is really bad. And but I didn't have any way to fix it. So I ended up going on and got past Olathe and headed down 169. I'm staying on highway now because I was afraid I was going to break down. I got to Independence, Kansas, got fuel there, and I looked at my chain, and I was thinking.
So when you say you were afraid you were going to break down, what did you think was going to happen when you say break down?
Well, I thought my chain was going to break, and I was going to just not be able to go anywhere.
Okay.
Yeah. But I wasn't even sure what the popping noise was. I didn't know if it was my transmission. At this time, I hadn't really put together that the chain and the popping noise were together. I still thought it was something weird going on with my motorcycle possibly too. But I got to Independence, Kansas, got fuel, looked at my chain. I thought, hey, I'm going to make it. And I kind of came up with this logic that if I just took it real easy between 0 and 25, then it didn't pop after that, and then I could go fast again, get home. So I get to Independence, I got fuel, and one of my motorcycle buddies lives in Independence, but I wasn't thinking quite straight. And I thought, man, I just want to get home. I had that disease to hurry up and get home. I thought, I'm 40 miles away. I'm going to make it.
Yeah,
so I take off from Independence. I've come this far, all the way from Minnesota.
All the way up to Minnesota and all the way back.
Yeah. So I'm cruising. I leave Independence. I get on Highway 75. I get about 5 miles outside of Independence. And there's this little bridge thing that the road kind of goes up and down. It's more of a culvert. It's not even a bridge, but it's a little bump in the road. Going 65 miles an hour. I hit that bump, and bad things happened. All of a sudden, my back wheel locked up, went into a skid. And what happened was my chain came off and wrapped around my trailing arm and basically stopped my back wheel. And I'm going 65 miles an hour, and my back wheel's in a skid. And I knew.
Smoke pouring off the tire.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't looking at that. I was looking straight ahead, thinking, holy cow. And when it did it, when I was going over that curb, I kind of bounced up and down, and my chain got enough to pop off. I ended up getting thrown to the center ring. Luckily, no car was coming. I didn't go over the center ring, but it kind of threw me, not in the air, but it kind of pushed me off to the left side a little bit. So now, my back wheel's locked up. I can't use my front brake because I couldn't control it. I knew I had to steer this thing down. I knew I was going to be slowing down because my back wheel's skidding like crazy. And I knew I had to get off this highway and keep it upright, because if I went down at 65, I was going to get hurt. So I'm looking forward.
Were you wearing a helmet?
Oh, hell yeah. I had my motorcycle jacket on, but normally I have motorcycle pants on. But when I was in Kansas City, it was really hot that day. My motorcycle pants, were hot. So I took my motorcycle pants off and put my jeans back on. I still had jeans, not shorts, but I had jeans on. But I didn't have my motorcycle pants on. So now I'm skidding down the road, 65 miles an hour. And I knew I had to get to the shoulder, and there was a nice ditch. And I thought, if I can just get to the ditch, I'm going to lay it over on its side and slide this thing into like I used to slide home in baseball. And so I'm angling toward the edge. I couldn't take too big an angle. I had to keep it up. I'm skidding, and I get over to the shoulder, and, it's a little bit of gravel there, but I keep it upright. I get over to the ditch, and I put it down on its side, and I just slide into first home base.
So were you shifting down as you were getting closer?
No, I couldn't shift down because my back wheel was locked up.
Okay.
I mean, my back wheel was totally locked up. There was nothing I could do except basically steer this thing and keep it upright. So once I got to the ditch, I slid it into the ditch, and I remember laying there, my motorcycle was still on, and I'm thinking, what in the heck has just happened? I didn't know my chain had came off. I thought my transmission had locked up or, So I'm laying there, and, I have bags on hard cases on the back, and I got engine case guards on the side of the engine. And by this time, I'm sliding off the motorcycle. I realize I'm not hurt too bad. I hear some people saying, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" Because there was a car behind me that saw the whole thing. And, and there was a car coming toward me, which I never even saw, because I was just focused, but he saw me go into the ditch. And they didn't know what had happened because they said, the guy behind me said, "Man, you were just going along. I was coming up behind you." And he said, "All of a sudden, you were like in trouble." I said, "Yeah." So they helped me drag my bike back up onto the side. We got it up on the center stand, and I'm looking at the chain wrapped around everything and thinking, holy cow. So I grabbed my cell phone. My buddy that lived in Independence that I ride motorcycles with.
You decided to give him a call now.
I decided to give him a call now instead of giving him a call 10 minutes earlier. Because Dennis would have been able to help me fix it. He had a 24 millimeter wrench. And it turns out that gas station I stopped was like probably less than a mile and a half from his house. I went right by his house when I came into Independence.
Oh, man.
So, but not thinking straight. So he comes, and Dennis is a few years older than me. And I met him on a dirt road on a bicycle ride outside of Sedan, Kansas years earlier. And that's how I became friends with Dennis, just a stranger. But when I bought the motorcycle, he bought one, and we'd ridden bicycles together. So we started riding motorcycles together some. So he comes, and I call him up because I remember him saying he had a trailer, motorcycle trailer. So I called up Dennis and said, "Hey, Dennis, you got that trailer?" And he said, "No, somebody stole it." I was like, "Are you kidding me?" He goes, "Why?" I said, "Well, I'm 10 miles outside of Independence, and I broke down on my motorcycle." I didn't tell him what happened. And he said, "Well," so he calls a tow truck guy, a guy that has a tow truck, but he has a U-Haul trailer that can haul motorcycles. So he came and picked me up. That guy showed up, and Dennis shows up in his vehicle, and he looks at my motorcycle and says, "What in the hell happened?" Because I just told him I broke down. I didn't tell him I just
Crashed it.
Yeah, I didn't crash it. It was
Or
controlled.
just laid it down.
Controlled dismount. That's what I call that. Controlled dismount. So we ended up, he's looking
More
at
like
me.
an uncontrolled dismount. Well,
It was controlled.
somewhere between controlled and uncontrolled. Because
No,
it was
I
you
kept it
against-
up.
It was you against physics, and both of you were fighting until it.
But wait a second. I made the choice to get to the ditch and put it down. I was in total control. It didn't throw me down. I knew once I got to that ditch and that it didn't look like a home base, but it looked like a whole lot better than pavement.
Yeah.
I was like,
Better than a cheese grater.
Cheese grater. So Dennis looks at my bike and goes, "What the hell happened?" So I start telling him the story about all the stuff that had been going on for the last 300 or 400 miles. It was the popping noise and the chain getting bad. And he goes, "And you kept going?" Dennis is older. He's like a big brother. And boy, and then he looked at my pants and says, "And where's your motorcycle pants?" I said, "I got hot back in Kansas City." And so all the way back,
Hang on.
Okay.
TV. Okay.
So all the way back, we loaded it up. We couldn't get the back wheel to turn, so we had to pick up the back wheel and get it up on this guy's trailer and secure it. So Dennis, the guy goes, "Where do you want me to haul this thing to?" And I look at Dennis, and Dennis says, "Haul it to my house." So Dennis is mechanic, bicycle rider. He's something else. So we get to his house, which I'd never been to his house before because I'd always met him on bike rides on dirt roads, And we open up his garage and we unload it in his garage and we start taking this thing apart. I call my wife because now she's got to come get me. And I told her, I said, hey, my bike broke. I need you to come to Independence and pick me up. So she drove up to get me.
How far is that for her to drive?
Oh, like 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Less than an hour.
Yeah.
But she'd never been to Dennis's house. So she's like, but he lived right off of Main Street. So I said, just come down Main Street. And when you get to the Brahms, call me and I'll walk out there and direct you into his house. So we end up, Dennis is looking at the chain. It's wrapped around so tight on the trailing arm that we can't get it off. So he grabs his 4-inch grinder and he's cutting the chain off into pieces to get the thing unwound off of it. So we can get the back wheel off of it, And,
did you leave any skid marks?
So, oh yeah, 330 feet.
Huh?
I went back and stepped it off. Actually, when I was waiting for Dennis, I stepped it off to see how far the skid mark was. It was 330 feet.
Wow. That was a ride.
Because I was doing 65, 70. It was a hell of a ride. So, so I got a lecture from Dennis on the way back to his house about being stupid and,
I'm sure you did.
And what's crazy is, I work for Phillips 66 in aviation, and I do training on, preventive maintenance and being smart and doing stuff and not taking chances because we're fueling airplanes. So I do this all the time. It's my day job, but I was stupid that day. So I tell Dennis, I said, hey, you can't tell my wife what happened. By this time we had the chain and I was like, she won't know that, she'll just think it broke. So she comes to pick me up. I tell Dennis, I said, hey, I'll get back with you on Monday or Tuesday with, I had the chain and the sprocket. I had all that stuff at home because I was going to put it on before I took off. So Dennis said he'd help me fix my motorcycle. So we end up taking it all apart. A couple of days later, we got it put back together, but that's a different story. So we end up, Dell and I are driving back and I'm driving and I get to that spot, that little bridge, little thing where the chain came off.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see this skid mark. And I say, this is where my bike broke. Right here. She sees the skid mark going down the highway into the ditch because we're driving. And she goes, you didn't tell me that you crashed your motorcycle. You said that the bike broke. And I said, well, it did break. But I was on it doing 65. So I confessed. So she wasn't too happy, but
I'm sure.
I did tell her I had good life insurance and, so.
She's like, dang.
Yeah, she said, dang. She thought she was going to be rich. But I ended up
you got 2 minutes.
Yeah, I ended up getting the motorcycle put back together. And like a week later, I went back up to Independence and rode it home. And she followed me back home. And it was an interesting ride after that near
death experience.
Near death experience from bad decisions. So
So
but we're supposed to be talking about Houston.
Well, we'll have to do that next. There has to be a part 3 now.
See, this is what happens. We end up getting off, and this is what happens when you're riding across places on adventures. You just never know what's going to happen. So, all right. So I did go to Houston last week. So I guess
all right, well, you got to stop there.
part 3.
We'll have to pick up. We'll have to pick up next time on Houston. See what happens there.
This might be like a mini series, maybe a major series. Forget the mini. It's probably going to be more than
it's a major
3
series.
or 4 episodes. So.
Well, anyway, thanks, Keith, for the chain story. We started off with Houston and the chain. Glad you're still alive. Glad you didn't have to use up your life insurance. And you had plenty of opportunities to, I guess that's a lesson for all of us when you have that little voice in your head saying, do this or do that. It might be good
when you're thinking this is a really bad idea, it probably is a bad idea. And if you're not thinking it's a really bad idea and you got something weird going on with you, and my daughter, real quick, my daughter says, when she hears the story. She said, Dad, you know how many times you've told me that if I hear something funny going on in the vehicle, stop driving it and call you, don't continue to drive it? And she goes, you heard a popping noise and you knew something was wrong and you just kept driving back from Minnesota? I said, yeah. So I got a lecture from at that time, she was probably 19 years old, 18 maybe. So, yeah.
Well,
Crazy
you're still
world.
alive. There you go.
Still alive.
All
We're
right.
at part 3.
If
4,
you're
5, and 6
watching
too.
on YouTube, like, share, subscribe. That'd be great. And if you're listening to this on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcasts, be sure to subscribe, like, rate us. Let us know what you think about what we're doing here. So anyway, thanks, Keith. Good story. And we'll have a part 3 now. Looked like we were just going to have a part 2, but now we got to go to part 3. So for Keith Clark, huh?
All right, I got to go.
Yeah. All right. For
See
Keith
you, man.
Clark, this is Scott Townsend. You guys have a great day, and we'll talk to you later.
Bye.
The Scott Townsend Show is a Dietzo Man production. For more episodes, visit the Scott Townsend Show YouTube channel, listen on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.
The Scott Townsend Show.